Hello.
Hello, hello.
Hello. Might be a light turnout today, just knowing that some people are off.
Looks a little bit empty, yes.
I'm having a hard time deciding if Marcin is hung or if that's his profile picture. And he's trying to reconnect.
Yeah, he's somewhere. Definitely. Okay, decent blur in the background. You don't see all the stuff that I have stuffed behind me.
You are well blurred. The
Yes.
audio sometimes picks up a little hum, like a AC hum or something like that.
Okay, I think it takes it from the USB video thing. Let me check.
It might just be a wire crossed somewhere.
Yeah, this is USB. I actually have to unplug and replug. I think that usually helps. Is it any better?
Still there. It's not horrible. Just
Okay.
something I noticed. It seems to have finally figured out that his video was on. Took it that long to take the picture away.
Okay. Now it should be without a hum.
That sounds really good. Yeah.
Yeah, I just plugged it somewhere else. It's a USB thing. So.
Interesting.
Yep. But actually I could see from this graphics thing that actually it was producing some kind of noise all the time. Cool.
It
Technology.
sounded very like 50, 60 hertz level kind of stuff.
Okay.
So sounds like it's the power bleeding through somewhere.
Yeah,
Bad ground,
absolutely.
something like that.
Yeah, nowadays usually all these meetings starts with a sound check. First of all, can you hear anything? Can you say
Can you
something?
hear?
Are you muted? And then let's sort out the rest.
And then hanging out until Marcin gets reconnected here.
Yes.
Gave us something good to chat about for a minute while waiting for
Yeah.
that. Otherwise, I'm just looking over proposal B, seeing if there's anything that catches my eye on that one. It's
Yeah, it was a little
got
bit
a
off,
lot in
like
there.
two weeks in a row. First I felt a bit down with the flu and sort of didn't really have the strength to join a meeting late in the evening. And last week I was actually down with the flu. So then I didn't join the meeting. Now it should be better.
Glad you're feeling better now. And I suspect the first thing on the list is going to be a review on my own proposal A. And we should try to get one more approval on that, but I don't think it's a breaker if that happens. Oh, I see. Maybe he's reconnecting.
Yeah,
Not
and
your audio yet.
I'm the guy with the Firefox browser on a Linux machine, and I still get it somehow working. I'm impressed.
I'm a fan of Firefox. All right, I see audio connected. Marcin, are you with us?
Hello, hello. Sorry, I'm a little bit late.
Hi, Christian. No worries. Okay, Marcin says he is here, but we can't hear him, so he can't unmute. Now he is playing with audio settings, looks like. Well, if Marcin is still working on the audio, we might want to kick this thing off a little bit here.
Hey guys, can you hear me now?
Hey, we can. Welcome.
Yes, now we can.
Thanks. Finally. Problems with my internet provider. Looks like so I joined from hotspot. Let's see how this is gonna work. I hope it's gonna be fine. Anyway, looks like we are quite late already, 7:12. So I guess we can start discussing stuff. Let's start maybe from the proposal A review. I did it myself completely, and I think, from my point of view, there is nothing I want to add. The proposal looks good to me, so I approve that. Unless anybody has anything to add about the proposal A, I think we can move to proposal B. I know Vanessa and Joe had some comments about that, but those comments were not like blocking this proposal itself, so I think we are good in there.
Yeah, the last comment I saw was find a merge there, and I don't think Vanessa's. Yeah, okay to acknowledge. I think we're good to merge. It would be good for the merging if we had a second approval though, just because that would avoid me having to clicking the red button to bypass all the checks.
Yeah, I think if not Vanessa, then Joe should approve that tomorrow. I'll talk to him about that because he said he's okay to merge them. Okay, then let's. Sorry, you were saying something, Brandon?
No, I was looking at the code owners here. Christian, I think you can also do it as well. So if you were to look at it and say they get your approval, I think that would also give us the two approvals. All right, so you want to chat about B?
Yes, let's chat about B. Maybe I can share my screen. Oh, you're doing this already. I didn't see that. That's fine.
I figured if your network was giving you
Yeah.
trouble, I could go ahead and handle this part for you.
Exactly. Thank you. So at the beginning, my proposal was quite wide and quite open, but I limited scope very much. And right now, what I'm proposing is to create a new artifact type with new data type, which is compatibility specification. And that's the proposal itself, to create a new artifact type. And later, if you can scroll down a little bit, Brandon, I suggest how we should connect artifacts to the images itself. So I have an idea to keep one-to-one artifact compatibility to image manifest itself, so that we have a tight relationship, one artifact for one image. And later, I basically propose some kind of language how we could describe compatibility itself. But before I going in there, I would like to clarify what this proposal is about, because as you mentioned, as you know before, my goal is basically to cover some kind of node provisioning cases, right? But in that specific case, I was mostly focused only for the node validation itself. If we need some third-party tools for scheduling, for node provisioning configuration itself, we should create another projects which are outside of the OCI scope, that could implement everything what they need by importing our core functionality. So this proposal is suggesting only to some kind of language to describe what it means that container is compatible in the host in terms of hardware, kernel configuration, OS configuration, and so on. And it allows you to express some specific relationship from some compatibility fields, like let's say if you have NVIDIA GPU or Intel CPU that is compatible with NVIDIA GPU, or it's compatible with Intel GPU, and then you have AMD CPU that is only compatible with NVIDIA GPU, you have to somehow express that. So if you scroll down a little bit, there is a graph I created, exactly this one, that shows that we need this kind of relationship showed in the compatibility specification itself, because we don't want to maintain a separate image for Intel CPU and separate image for AMD CPU, because they will be exactly the same. So we need some kind of relationship in the compatibility specification, and I suggest to use a graph for that. And if you scroll down a little bit down, then there will be a specification proposal, uh, specific examples, because that is just a schema. Oh yeah, example of use. So because I like the idea from Vanessa about keeping it simple. So if you take a look at the first simple requirements, it looks very simple. Like you define what is compatible with your container regarding the host hardware or whatever you like to define, in a very simple way. However, if you like to make it a little bit more complex to express all of these relations, so I introduced a new field called relations, where you can show the graph, which is completely optional. It will be visible if you scroll a little bit down. There is a relations field that you describe the relations as a graph. Uh, Not sure, because probably in the HPC community, I'm not sure if you would use this kind of stuff, because from Vanessa's proposal, I understand that the simple form is good enough, and she would like to express a graph on the schema level, but we will get there once we talk about proposal D. But yeah, this is the idea basically, to have a very small scope for the OCI tool, just to create artifact, validate if this graph or this spec is valid against a host operating system, and provide this as an artifact, and all other stuff that has to be like implemented by other software or use cases, like scheduler, node provisioning, reconfiguration, they should do it in their own sandbox. Like they should have a dedicated tool to cover those use cases. I think about the scope for that should be very minimalistic, that we don't have too much stuff. And yeah, basically that's it. Yeah, maybe if we talk about implementation itself, I suggest that we have everything in tree architecture, meaning that we have, if somebody wants to contribute, to create their own plugins, we allow to do that over the community with their own organization, but we have to have strict control over this, what's going on in there. That's why we need to review some security aspects of those plugins, what they are doing, and so on. Meaning, users who like to run that should first deploy some AppArmor or Linux profile that is developed by us, that it feels secure for the, and it is secure for the user. And we should review, yeah, this kind of things. So And we could also copy some plugins from Node Feature Discovery that we don't write everything from scratch. I mean, because basically NFD covers all of those stuff, and if we miss something in there, we could contribute to NFD or get NFD folks and try to convince them to create a separate project out of their scanners that we contribute to, that they can use it in their Kubernetes namespace, and we can use it in OCI namespace as well. I think Vanessa already started the discussion there about that. So
yeah, that sounds actually like a very good idea, because NFD is already like picking up, as you said, picking up these things you listed.
yeah, my only concern for that is because under OCI I don't see so much tools. I only see this, I don't know how to pronounce that, UMOCI, this tool that is handling with manifests, and we are providing something, some tool that has to be maintained, right? It's not only about the spec itself, but if TOB will be okay with that, because me and Vanessa volunteer to be maintainers of that. So yeah, it's just a matter of getting some agreement in there. But maybe let's go a little bit more like in hierarchy. So let's talk about the first part, because I split this proposal into two things. First is the specification, the second is the tool itself. So do you have any comments for the specification?
As I'm looking over it, I'm trying to think of the scenarios when some of these things would apply, and some of the different cases. I'll scroll back up so we're all talking about the same thing. Especially when you get the complex ones where you're saying there's a case where you can have an Intel CPU and this GPU card and an AMD CPU and a different card and whatnot. I can go back up to the picture.
Yeah.
I'm trying to follow, is this for a single image that would have a handful of scenarios that supports, but not a combination that mixes and matches? Or is this saying you've got two images, one image does these handful of things, and a second image does a different handful of things?
It's just for one image. One image can have combination of different configurations. For example, if you have Intel CPU, you will have a different kernel boot arguments for Intel IO MMU, because they provide their own configuration for kernel itself for those for their CPU. AMD, on the other hand, will have different arguments for IO MMU, or there might be a difference. In that case, virtual functions are the same, but those differences exist. So that's why it's everything like 1-to-1 artifact is one artifact is to one image, and the relations has to be expressed for one image. So because you can have different configuration, which is basically forced by having a different hardware.
So I guess when I'm thinking of the different scenarios out there, the big concern that you're raising of this versus others is that just saying that I've got an NVIDIA on my local machine isn't good enough. I need to tell you that I've got the NVIDIA plus Intel, and otherwise this whole thing is bad.
Yeah, yes, it could be validated this way. Yeah, I mean, because depends how you shape the graph, right? Because I showed this in that direction, but it could be a little bit different. However, you have to express that if you have Intel CPU, it can, for example, support those kind of GPUs, or different, doesn't have to be GPU, or different hardware. Like for example, if you have AMD CPU, you will not support Intel integrated GPU card. It's impossible in that case.
Yeah, it's not an external GPU in your example, right? You
Yeah.
expect it to be an integrated GPU or an external NVIDIA GPU.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I like graphs, so I like the proposal. Of course, it's from proposal A. It's like the other end of the spectrum, I suppose, right? So it's like proposal A had it very simple and one string and key value pair, and now we are going to the other end of the spectrum. I think I like it. The question is how how simple is it for the simple use cases, and how will people react if that seems
If
rather
people have
complex?
if people have very simple use cases, if you can scroll up, Brandon, a little bit, they are not forced to add
Yeah, of
graphs.
course.
Yeah, that would look like
Yeah,
that. Basically, a few lines or whatever the compatibility they would express. However, I have to mention that when I was creating that, I didn't think of image selection. I thought mostly of compatibility between container and the host. And whatever people will
yeah,
do with that, if some container runtime will decide to implement that for image selection, fine by me, but they would have to do it on their own.
yeah. I think that's the challenge, right? If we have an image index and we need to have a simple select statement somehow, like what is the selection process with those kinds of complex compatibilities?
Yeah. I mean, because in Vanessa's proposal, it's quite similar, but a little bit bigger, and it's a little bit different in different terms because in there we are coming from scheduler point of view and image selection point of view, but you still have language that is basically. I was inspired by proposal D when I was creating this kind of specification. I just added the graph on this level. So we still have a artifact, and Vanessa would like to use it for image selection and scheduling and so on. So my plan was basically to invite guys from container maintainers from containers runtimes like maybe Podman, Containerd, and hear their opinions about this. If they would like to implement such a thing or some kind of modular uh, approach for image selection. That if you like to have different way of image selection, you can, I don't know, adapt or enable some kind of module that is created by some third party, but you're doing this on your own responsibility or something like that. So I think we need to have this kind of discussion.
I wonder if we can have like this simple version of A, and if someone wants to express a more complex use case, that we have this additional complex version, like that we have both, so people can maybe get introduced to it on a simple level with annotations, and then if they need something more complex, they can adopt the graph, whichever graph it is. Or is it, do we want one solution and we don't want two?
I don't think we need only one solution. As Brandon mentioned in the past, we cover a little bit different use cases. So I think it's okay to have multiple solutions as long as everybody would like to implement them.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
The direction I would look for answering that question is, what would runtimes do if you start out just doing annotations and later on added the full artifact? Are they just going to look at the annotations and never bother looking for the artifact, and therefore, what does the artifact give us, and scenarios like that? That's what I'll look to.
Yeah.
So this proposal is basically defining some artifact specification which contains graph. And when it comes to tooling, I would like to have something very simple in scope: create artifact, push artifact, and validate if it's host itself against the artifact itself. And even for example, people wouldn't like to have in one repository all the organizations. It could be done that we just import from different repositories plugins from other communities, the same way how Kubernetes in three cloud control managers worked in the past. Like you had separate repositories for them, and then you just import it to the kubelet. That was, I think, some part to the kubelet, some part somewhere else to API server.
Yeah, when you
Yeah, I mean it's for the.
Go ahead, Christian.
No, for the NFD integration, it would come down to translating what the NFD spits out into compatibilities, like because
Yeah.
the NFD will just, I think, create annotations, right? Key value.
Yes.
I wanted to I wanted to skip this part because NFD has this source package. It's not a package. It's outside of the package directory, but it contains the source code that is responsible for detection stuff on the operating system. And later there is a part of the code that gets the output of those scanners and translates to annotations. If I looked that correctly. So I just want to extract the part which is responsible for scanners, use it, and output should be customized to our needs. I don't want to use Kubernetes labels or any form of Kubernetes, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, thinking of your comments on Umochi, the other big project out there was Run C that OCI maintains. So we have a little bit of code, but the group is definitely steered towards being more of a spec organization than a project organization. At a higher level, usually CNCF takes over when there gets to be a big project like Containerd, Kubernetes, anything else out there. So there's
see.
kind of a quasi boundary, but not really.
I see. So depends because I guess you would have to hear opinions from all TOB.
Yeah.
And then maybe we can decide which direction we should go. If they are okay with spec, including you, Brandon, of course, then maybe we have spec and we can create a tool outside of OCI, like you created a rec client, something like that, right? Or
Yep. There are a bunch of things outside of everything. People can make it without being part of any of the groups, and otherwise see if someone like CNCF wants to adopt it. Potentially OCI might. Like you say, this is something to take to the TOB at a certain point, and that'll be part of our output from the working group is to say, hey, would the TOB be interested in approving another big project?
okay. That's fine. So yeah, basically that's the proposal. Other comments, concerns about this?
Some might have put in the PR itself. When you're looking through that, I put some comments in there mentioning, if we're looking at this from the artifact standpoint, you can have multiple artifacts of the same type. And when that happens, you get challenges. I think other people have talked about just using the date stamp if they see multiple, but there are cases where depending on the artifact, they might want multiple. You can sign image multiple times. And so having the multiple is useful if you want to see who signed it. In this case, whether you have multiple compatibility, maybe not. I don't know if looking at all of them is useful, or if you want to just look at the current date stamp, that would be a question for you to think about for the implementation.
I spoke about that with Joe because he's co-author of this specification as well, of this proposal. And we came to agreement that we want to basically keep one-to-one relation and always look at the creation timestamp for the artifact itself. Because when we thought about this, having multiple artifacts to one image brings more problems than benefits from our point of view. So we always try to keep just to have one. And since you have a graph in the specification, you are able to cover like very complex use cases if you have. So
Yep. So that would just be a good thing to call out in here, just as saying, iterate or check for it, and then just update something there that says, look for the most recent version. And that would be an annotation, so you would see that in the refers response. You don't have to pull each one individually.
we thought about pulling individually because if the registry doesn't support refers API, so we thought about some fallback mechanism to?
The refers fallback does the same. So it's the same
Okay.
response. It's an OCI index, and you pull up the annotations. And so you would have an annotation that just says, here's my creation time. That's one of the documented annotations we actually do have out there. And so then you just look through the list of responses and then find the entries in there with the same type in the most recent time.
Okay, even better. Cool. Yeah, and basically the whole
But as
if we
maybe it's
sorry, go ahead.
just to follow up on that, but for as a site or as an admin for a specific set of nodes, I could create my own artifacts and then prefer those from my little registry without republishing everything. I mean, we spoke about this briefly last time, but like that would be cool, right? So if I have my own registry and I have my own artifacts to override what the image author has released first, because
Yeah,
So let me
have
clarify
knowledge
your
about
scenario.
my.
Are you going to copy the image, or do you want the image to be on a remote registry and you have the artifacts on the local registry?
I think that would be my pipe dream. Yeah, that would be cool.
The second, you want them separate. So that would be something that you're going to be able to include in whatever tooling is reading this to be able to say, pull my artifacts from this location. And then your registry needs to be able to support that, which I think we'll find that in registries, but I don't think it's a guarantee.
Okay.
But yeah, it should be a possibility.
Cool.
As long as the tooling supports putting that other pointer in there to say, go query this from another location.
And can we specify that we want, or that we, not that we require it, but that we encourage runtimes and tooling to enable that? Maybe not. Okay.
That's a question for Marcin, not for me.
but I'm a little bit lost. What's the question right now?
The request is to enable in the various tooling here a configuration option that says, pull my artifact from this other repository. So the image might be on a public registry outside of your firewall, and all of the artifacts might be on your local registry that you control.
I see, something like that. But I prefer to keep the most simple approach in here. I mean, if you have image that exists in some repository with some artifact and both contents are signed, and you pull only the image without the artifact, and you prefer to build something on your own and push it to your own local registry or whatever, then it's your business. Whatever you do is basically your business. As long you decide to trust unsigned artifact or have a different signature than the image, it's basically your own business. Whatever, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think you would sign it yourself. The question is, can you pass a configuration to the tooling that says the image itself might be on a different registry to avoid that copy, to avoid self-hosting the entire image yourself if you wanted to.
Yeah, I think, yeah, that could be an option.
Yeah, I mean, we can cross the bridge when we encounter it. But I think from my gut tells me that this is something that people would want, right? So that if you have like a registry like NVIDIA or Spec or whatever, you don't want to host all the images that you ever will need on a local registry. You want to somehow take them from upstream and just say like, this is somehow checked on our local cluster, so we know that this configuration works, and this is how we then just, when we have an artifact for that, then you can trust that it works on this host.
Given the number of times I've heard that request, Christian, I'm starting to wonder if it would make sense to build a smart proxy that you pull from your proxy, and that proxy will either pull the image from upstream or pull your artifact from a local location. And then you kind of get the best of both worlds.
Yeah, and I started to build my own registry, so maybe I will just dig it up again and
You and me both.
implement this as well. Yeah. Okay, cool. Sounds good to me.
Yeah. So yeah, just to keep this very minimalistic in terms of scope. That's the goal for this proposal. And next week, I guess we are going to talk about Vanessa's proposal. And after that, I plan once we merge all the pull requests. So proposal A is okay with me. I think it's gonna be merged soon. Christian, as Brandon said, you can take a look as well. And later we have proposal B. So if there are any comments or you have some concerns, you can express them in the PR, that we can resolve also all discussions, and then we can merge proposal B. After we merge D, I guess we have to have the discussion about all of these proposals. So I'm going to prepare some kind of presentation about the scope of all three proposals, and after that I plan to pull others into the discussion, like container runtimes maintainer, to express their opinion about what they think of those artifacts, if this is something we could optionally include in container runtimes for image selection. But
Yeah.
first, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, in addition to getting a proposal and presenting the stuff to get opinions from people that might have to implement it, I think the step maybe potentially after that would be to start making some implementations. And I know Vanessa's been playing around with a lot of code lately, so she's probably been working on a little bit of that with D. And so it might be good to start looking at for A and B, what would it take to update some of the tooling out there? We can, in the past, we maintain our own fork in a little OCI sandbox group, which we can use for some of this stuff as well. Just to start making forks of projects that would implement some of this and show how it would look, how it would be implemented, and whether or not that would be something reasonable to try to create.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. We just need to right now to agree with because proposal A will not be a problem. Proposal B and D agreement will be a problem, because with Vanessa we think about different. We are agree on the graph representation, but we are representing this on a different level, because Vanessa has this idea of schema. So basically, this is when some organization is creating some specification, they can connect fields in the graph to show how they relate to each other. The idea in proposal B is basically that you leave it to users how they create relations between compatibilities. So there will be discussion there how we should do it the best way. But yeah, I think we can find the consensus at some time.
All right, I gotta drop. See you next time.
All right, thanks,
Okay.
Christian.
Thanks, Christian. Cheers.
Yeah, in terms of order of operations, I think when we did the refers, we did have a group consensus amongst ourselves. This is what we thought made the most sense. So if we can get there, that's great. If we can't, then maybe have multiple would help suss out some of the challenges that we're looking at.
Yeah.
Either way.
Exactly. Okay, then I have nothing to add. Next week, I'm hoping Vanessa will join, and then we can discuss the proposal D.
Sounds good. I will spend the next few minutes here trying to get my review on B, so that either I give you a few things to finish up, last little tweaks in there, or we get a check mark on there so we're one closer.
Okay, thank you. So have a good Thursday, guys, and talk to you soon.
All right.
Bye-bye.